Hello again to everyone. Here I started and didn't even clean my glasses, so I'll be talking while I'm cleaning my glasses. What a way to start, right? We're doing the second 2-hour session, and this really does tie into to the first session, so before we get going here and really begin to dialogue and discuss, I just want to once again say that this meeting, which is a discussion forum, is without prejudice, explicitly without prejudice, under reserve, same thing, and it's under the blood covenant of Yehoshua ben Yahweh HaMashiach, commonly known as, or I should say commonly known by the world as Jesus Christ. So we're here to discuss today something. It's a free discussion. It's each one of us giving our thoughts about what works for us, and it's not legal advice at all in any form or fashion. We're not offering legal advice. If anyone wants to have that, they all know where to go. If they want to have lawful advice, well, they can know where to go with that too, if they know their Creator. So anyways, what we're discussing today, there's been a lot of requests for how is a document structured, and why do we do the things that we do with documents? And I've got some... Because we can. And we have discovered through the years, through trial and error, and through mistakes, and we've seen what works, we've tested, and we have not been found wanting, and in a lot of what we're showing here today. So let's just get going here. If you see the first one, you remember the box that we call the fiction matrix, and it's square. My understanding, and you need to check everything, go and do your own research. If we mention something, go and check it out for yourself. If it's not so, come back and we can discuss it. And but what we have found is that the style manual or the form manual for the United States Government Printing Office makes it very clear that anything in a box meaning no rounded corners, anything in a box is not part of the document. So if you have some public servant sign under the penalties of perjury and you find it's in a box, that's not part of the document. It's basically invisible to the document. Anything in a box is really invisible. Now, what does that tell you about the world system? Okay, and I was thinking about this just coming over here, and I was talking a little bit with Joe about it. We've seen around the world in 80 days. We've read the book, or we maybe have seen the movie, or the remake of the movie. Well, this is not a world that we're standing on in space. This is the Earth, and the Earth is round. The world is the system that tries to make us think that we're standing on the world, but we're standing on the Earth. And the Earth is round, but the world is square. The one world government is a fiction. Everything about the world is a fiction. And I was mentioning this last night. Before we get into the documents, I just want to quickly review a little bit in a different perspective. Those that know the scriptures, they can understand this. If you don't, that's okay. You can still understand it. What we have here is we have evil and we have good. Okay? Or we have the creditor and we have the debtor. And this is the whole fiction system here. Well, if you go back to the Genesis account, if you look at that compilation of letters and books, 66 of them, commonly referred to as the Bible, look at that as a commercial document, manual for living life here on this earth, in a world, but not being of the world. All right? This is not life. There was 2 trees in the garden among all the other trees. There was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. good and evil. Okay? That doesn't bring life. There was another tree outside, and what we're looking at is outside this world system, and this is the tree of life. We, as living souls, live outside this system. But the system of knowledge of good and evil, creditor and debtor, debit and credit, it doesn't matter whether you're on the good side or the evil side, you're still a debtor within this system. You're a fiction. So that's just a little tidbit of my thoughts. And but when you come to know your Creator, you come to know who you are in Him, the Almighty, and you come to know who the Almighty is in you. That we live and move and have our very being in Him. And but let's start getting to the document now that I've thrown those tidbits out here. All right. We're looking at a document here. Let's say that this is the document. I'm using blue. I hope that stands out okay. All right. And I'm just going to, and feel free here, Scott and Joe and Walt, to throw in here. Let's start at the top left of the document. If we're talking about a common law document, okay, there's a flag. And whatever flag, we look at this document as a vessel on the Sea of Commerce. All right? Anything that has a flag, any vessel that's flying a flag, that vessel is under the law of that flag. Sometimes people ask, why are you putting the flag up here on the left-hand corner? All right? Joe, go ahead and make mention here of why is it to the right if you're facing from the, and why is it to the left if you're facing this way? Joe, you probably need to step up here. Joe gives a very good, this is the one that goes by Joe Darlock.
Excuse me, David. Yeah. Anytime you're working with a piece of paper that intends to go out into the Sea of Commerce, this entire document becomes a vessel in commerce. All vessels have got to be flagged. You can't put a vessel out onto the sea without a flag on it, so that the other vessels out there know where it comes from. The reason it's flagged is, if you'll go to the very end of the Constitution of the United States, there is a sentence in there that says, "And this Constitution and all treaties will be the supreme law of the land." Words to that effect. Treaties follows Constitution. The last words on the document down here take control and precedence over everything. Take authority over everything that goes before. So the back of this document on the right-hand side is the real controlling signature on this document, but you don't see it. So what we're dealing here in is fictions and fantasies. Everything that's right side up is upside down. Everything that's right is left. It's right changes to left, left changes to right, up is down, down is up.
On his back.
And isn't it curiouser and curiouser and curiouser, as Alice in Wonderland said? Lewis Carroll wrote a book called Alice in Wonderland, and it was all about these fictions. He couldn't come right out and say that the Crown and the peers and the attorneys, etc., that were operating in commerce were doing something fictitious and really illegal when it comes to understanding it in terms of truth. And so he wrote a book called Alice in Wonderland, and as David has there, he puts the line in front of, or in between the project here. Everything over here is fiction. Everything over here is truth. Alice was here, but she had to come over through the looking glass, and she did it by eating little bits of cake and drinking little drinks and what have you. She got herself over into the fiction side, and what did she run into over here? She ran into the Red Queen. She ran into the Mad Hatter. she ran into the hare and the Cheshire Cat. And all of these so-called beings, or what were real in this fiction side, were truly fiction. They said funny things. The Red Queen put out crazy edicts. Everything, and almost everything she knew was off with her head, off with her head. To which Alice would reply, nonsense. She didn't understand it because this is where her brain and her upbringing started. So in coming through this looking glass, she ended up on this fiction side. When we enter commerce, this is what we're doing. We're entering the fiction side. And over here is the Red Queen and her minions, only they wear black robes over here that we well know of. And so this fiction side is what we're dealing with. Now, how can we be in the world but not of the world? And this is something that's, of course, addressed in Scripture, and it's going to be addressed in almost everything we're doing. We cross that fiction line. Same thing happened with Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. Instead of going through the looking glass, she was carried off in a tornado and still ended up in a fiction world where these fictional characters live that she had to interact with. And while she was there, they're very real to her. And as you know, if you spend any time in jail or whatever, you find out that these people are very real and they have very real power in this fiction world. How do you maintain control in this fiction world? Well, this is part of it. It's, again, knowing who you are, and you're going to send off this fictional document into commerce. And so for the purposes of the discussion, this is a vessel in space. It's flagged, and you're going to put words on it. And those words, for the purposes of the discussion, are the cargo on that ship. Now, you know you can't send a letter through the mails unless you pay for that cargo. You can't move it through there. You can't ask someone to do you a service and carry those mails nationally or internationally. And so up here, we'll put a stamp and pay for that thing. Keep the receipt. That's your bill of lading, and this is your evidence that you paid for that stamp. And usually, like a duty, yeah, this is the imposed duties. This guarantees that it's going to be going through international commerce, and it's recognized as being legitimately carried by other nations by virtue of those treaties, which are the supreme law of this land. So the United States can't stop mail from moving through it unless there's something absolutely illegal going on with the mail itself. But you cannot stop commerce. If you slow the mail down, think about it. All you're doing is interfering with a contract. You're slowing it down by time. You're interfering with the interest which is growing on a particular item, for instance, that you purchased, or money that you've lent, which is also based on time. And so by delaying these things, you're costing the people who are on this contract money, either delay of payment or delay of delivery. So this guarantees the payment. Typically, it's going to be purchased in $1 increments, and so you can make that purchase. You then go ahead and sign or cancel this.
The thing that's interesting, I'll just throw in here, on that $1, when you ask for a $1 postage stamp from the U.S. Postal Service, you'll find that the S has 2 lines through it instead of 1 line. For $1 postage stamp, it's a 2-line S, and what that is lawful money. It's equal to money of exchange. If those of you have read the Modern Money Mechanics, it's a 52, 53-page document from the Federal Reserve. They explain the difference of money of exchange on this side, and money of account. Money of account is all the debt notes, all the promises to pay. A note means promise to pay. So you see Federal Reserve note on the piece of green paper that you have in your pocket or your purse. That means a promise to pay. So everybody's promising everybody else to pay. Nobody's paying. Everybody's promising to pay. But over here you have gold, silver, and our exemption, our energy, our unlimited credit. And so whenever you see that stamp, you've probably seen the Fox head stamp, the $1 Fox head stamp. It's got 2 lines.
Zeus.
Yes, and now there's a new one that's Zeus, I guess, or whatever, and it has 2 lines. And what that is the same as silver. You're putting money of exchange on this side, and go ahead and explain what you're doing whenever you sign across the tip.
We discussed a little bit last week, or last time we were here, but the cancellation of the stamp is your cancellation signature. And what I have found useful is just to place through there with the autograph, and then you're going to use your real person cancellation. This makes you the postmaster of your vessel. And you've now given permission to cancel the stamp, utilize this that you've already purchased, you've already put the money into commerce through the government. That treaty now that you've entered into is the International Postal Union, and every country in the world that's a signatory to that now has the obligation to make sure that this vessel gets to where it's going safely.
Yeah, I throw in a point here. Usually what we'll do is we'll have the autograph, like was mentioned on the first video, spelled correctly across, and then put with the autograph underneath that autograph. And then above it, it might be advisable, I'm not giving this advice, but if people want to think about doing this, they can put without prejudice, which is what we have here. You can even add the word explicitly, making it very clear. But so, yeah, go ahead about the Worldwide Postal Union.
So now they're obligated through treaty, the postal union treaties, to make sure this gets where it's going. I had mentioned last week also that bankrupt countries can't declare war. Well, what happened in 1933, we came into a real major problem in the country here, and even worse problem in 39 through 41. We were being pulled into World War II. Well, we really couldn't declare war. But when we were attacked at Pearl Harbor, the postmaster at Pearl, or in Hawaii, called the postmaster in Washington, D.C. and said, I can't get the mail through. We've been attacked, or the mail's being interfered with. Send the military escort. So the Postmaster General of the United States gives an order to the President of the United States as a Chief Executive Officer and Commander-in-Chief to mobilize the military to make sure that mail gets through. And so pretty much this is what's happened. What does a war do? It interferes with commerce. And the game is nothing interferes with commerce. And so probably what we're doing over in the Gulf right now. Britain has a problem. They get 60% of their oil out of Kuwait. And it's a little tiny province down of the south part of Iraq. Well, we've got a loose cannon floating around down there who occasionally will come across the border and interfere with British commerce. If you were to interfere just for a period of time with Britain's commerce, with Britain's oil, they are the largest investor in the United States in commodities and stocks. So think what happens there. With commodities and stocks interfered with in Britain, they begin to sell off and cash out their investments. Well, their investments are for a great part in the United States. If there was suddenly a sell-off of their investments in the United States, our economy, which at the time was on a knife edge, would have probably collapsed. So was it a war for oil? Yes and no. It was a war for British oil. The British oil was part of their commerce and their production and their investments, just keeping their commerce alive. And so when that was taken out of circulation, it was putting our country at risk. So without going into too much more detail on some of the ramifications of that, we'll get back to this situation. These are vessels in commerce. Think of another one. When the astronauts were standing on the moon, one of them said, "Oh golly, look at the Earth. It looks like a ship in a sea of space." Wonder what the Antichrist is going to be, the captain of that ship. This is going to be the master of the world's commerce, and they're moving toward it pretty much very quickly.
And note that Joe uses the word world. We hear the global word, we hear the world word, one world government. You don't hear one earth government, you hear one world government. And so that's what they're talking about.
So I'm getting too scattered here, going off in some corners, but what we're working with is these are all
Flag being right.
these are all vessels, and we're dealing with vessels, commerce. Think of a sea of commerce. Think of these things as ships in commerce. Think of yourself as being in control of these things or being controlled by these pieces of paper, which are all, again, fiction. But unless this fiction operates, commerce doesn't operate. Up here,
You're going to
we've got
something about a courtroom.
Yeah.
Where the captain of the vessel is
That's
up
what
there.
we're gonna do.
And what the right thing.
so on this side, everything on this side of the vessel is the debtor side. But in flag law, typically the courtesy is to place the flag either in the center, the flag that controls the vessel, either in the center of the room, for instance, or to the right side, as it's facing the people here, so that it's under your sword arm. This all has to do with English heraldry, or international heraldry as it goes. The judge, who's going to be sitting up here, for instance, in a courtroom, in these little robes, is going to be facing this way. Everybody facing the judge on this side would be the debtor side. They're under his sword arm. This is the portion that disciplines the court. Over here is the creditor's side, and he's obligated to defend the creditor. That's under his shield arm. And so this flag on this side is basically facing you, and this is what it's saying, that this takes precedence over everything on this ship. This is the law that governs the ship. So all the laws that are attendant to the Republic of Texas, for instance, in this case, would be governing the laws of this contract, and anyone who wanted to enter onto that ship would be under that particular sovereignty. So if you enter a courtroom, excuse me, the same thing happens with common law. Common law operates on a single level. The people in the courtroom, the jury, the defendant, plaintiff, and the judge. That's common law. No one is above anyone else. This is truly what the Constitution of the United States was addressing. This is what the Declaration of Independence was addressing. All men are created equal. No one's above anyone else. In the fiction situation, however, something came up. Up here sits the judge. We're looking sideways at the courtroom now. Here, he's got the prosecutor. Here we have a witness box. And here we have the jury box. And here we've got you down here. In there also is a flag in that courtroom. And typically, because this is a little vessel in commerce here, as it were. You're out here on the poop deck. The judge is in control. He has summary judgment over everything in that courtroom. The prosecutor represents everything below him. He's an officer of the judge. He's kind of like the CEO or the executive officer on the ship. The witness is in a box. He doesn't exist. The jury is in a jury box. They don't exist. And you're down here as a defendant, standing understanding the charges. And this is what happens. Now, he can submit you to summary judgment and make you walk the plank. In many cases, all you're dealing with here is a type of military law, and he can make you walk the plank or keel haul you or hang you or and maintain himself as as innocent to anything that's done on board that ship. So we get back to the good old Earth and see his face. Whoops, where's the high water mark? What kind of a flag are they under? What's operating here? You have to understand the risks you're taking when you introduce yourself into commerce. In the world, not of the world. Well, how do you put your foot in one canoe and then put your other foot in another canoe and still keep yourself from being wishboned out there on the water? And this is pretty much what we're dealing with. It's a real balancing act. So what we're dealing with primarily is commerce, maritime rules, rules of the flag, rules of the document, and the document itself is going to be the valuable study here, because as we're learning, we're going to flag the document, we're going to send the document out with the stamp, we're going to cancel it out, take control of it as the postmaster, because as you know, the postmaster actually, in terms of the treaty, is actually in control of the document, because this is the guy that's going to keep this thing safe in international law. So really, he is the one who has ultimate power over here, this postmaster, or postmaster general of the ship. And if you sign through it, that's you. Your second situation is to take control of the document, and down at the bottom right, and I shouldn't have boxed it, but just to give you an idea where this thing's going to exist. Down here, you're going to take control of this document on the front, and on the back right-hand side, everything on the right belongs to the creditor. This is the only guy that can talk. This is the only guy that's listened to. The debtor is silenced. When you go in and you think you're arguing pro se litigant is litigating as an attorney representing himself. You're not an attorney. If you walk in and tell the court you're pro se, they'll accept that as truth, but they know it's not. They'll accept it as true, they know it's not. You're committing a fraud on the court. You just lied to them. You deserve everything you're going to get. Another rule they use is fraud vitiates fraud. This is honor among thieves. If you can lie, we can lie. These are the new rules. The only rules that operate are the rules of the contract. You walk into the courtroom, there's the four corners. Actually, nothing's operating in that courtroom except the law of four cornering. It's all in fiction. You walk into the fiction world, you're under the control of the Red Queen. And when she says off with his head, we're off with her head. In the case of Alice, that's what's operating here.
Joe, why the Red Queen? Why are they using the word red? What do you think there?
Well, I think they're using red as well. This word comes from the word, our English word, which comes from this Latin word. That's the genitive. When you work Latin, you study Latin, that's the noun form, that's the genitive. Genitive means possessive. So the rubric is done by virtue of this ruby or ruber or rubris. It was used to show the signature in blood, that the person signing this had the blood authority. Blood authority, usually, and again we're getting too far afield, but from the Messiah's bloodline. If you read Bloodline of the Grail, you have to have authority to sign in red. And so, whether it's the Pope or the King of England or whatever, they will typically sign in red, letting them know that they have the authority of the bloodline from the beginning, and they have the authority of the blood itself. They're real living beings. And so when they sign in rubric, you're telling them that you have the authority and you're signing in blood, and so this takes the authority of the document. The Pope will sign typically in red. You're all familiar with the red letter Bible. Well, the Messiah speaks in truth, and when the Messiah speaks, they show it in red letters. It's the rubric again. He has authority, and he is the bloodline. He has the power through the inheritance of the Father himself to speak with authority, and he must be obeyed. Down the bottom here, then, you're going to do your signature, real man's signature, with the copy claim. Now, everybody knows what a copyright is. Well, having a right It's like having a right arm. Nothing happens until you pick up a hammer and start building a wall with it. The copy claim is the action. You've copy claimed it. You must claim something. And think of claims in terms of the two prospectors heading for the county courthouse on back of their mules, racing for that county courthouse, so that the first guy there to register the claim gets the gold claim. Number two is a secondary holder, has a secondary claim, and typically no claim at all. So once you're the first one in, first in time, first in line, first in time is the rule. First in time, first in line.
First around the post.
Yep. This guy is the lien holder, basically. He's got the claim. What you get when you file that UCC is something presumptive. The UCC really doesn't say anything. It's a notice to the world. But it has no claims or real legal power. But what it's going to have is first in time, first in line notice that somewhere there is a security agreement or a contract in place that makes you the primary lien holder. So when they see that out in the world, when they see that thing come up on a notice, that's noticed literally to the world. The Uniform Commercial Code is set up by this organization, and that'll be down in the bottom of your UCC, for instance. Going to be the same situation here. We've got debtors and creditors. And this little IACA, it's down outside the box right here. And this is the organization. If you punch this up on your computer, if you punch this up on your computer, this one says Office of Secretary of State. This is an old form. It'll say IACA down the bottom of it. So if you punch that up, you'll learn all there is to know about the IACA and what the UCC is all about. It says that this document is on record somewhere. It establishes a debtor and a creditor, and that these people are, from what it looks like to me anyway, this is the International County Recorder. It's a woman. She lives in Canada. They'll give you her home address and phone number, and the rest of the staff that run this thing. It controls the registration of all of these documents of debtor creditors in all the English-speaking world: the United States, Canada, Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and the territories. And so this is where your UCC goes and who it's available to when it's put out in commerce. And of course, they're trying to draw everyone in to this single commercial notice situation. But this primarily notices everybody that you're the creditor. And you've established a debtor over here by some form of contract. And these contracts are what we're going to be talking about here. You're the first in time, you're the first in line, you have the copy claim on it, and this copy claim then is written on the bottom right-hand side of that document.
It could be something similar to this, or what I usually do is I put the word seal, just as any monarch would have. We are sovereign. We were born sovereign. Any monarch has his signet ring or his seal ring, and he seals. Well, we can either put our red thumbprint, or we can put our initials down here in the bottom right. Remember, it has to be on the back side, bottom right as well. And that's the last thing on the document, on the back side. I do it front and back, and then I put copy-claim. So copy claim here is we are claiming this document. So front back of each page. So that way, if it's blank on the back and they look at the back, the fiction looks at the back. No, nobody finished up this document, and they put the copy claim on the back.
They stamp it too, right?
They stamp it. And if you notice, if there's a notary stamp, where's that notary stamp? It's usually right here on the bottom right. They usually have enough room. You can make sure that if you type up the document that you have that notary seal high enough so you can make sure